Hello and welcome to another episode of Fan Fuel Motorsports Podcast. This is episode 97, when a paperclip becomes a paperweight. And we don't have a T on there, so that's my fault. Anyways, it's another episode today. We'll be talking about everything Martinsville. We're glad to have you, and we're glad to have Colton back. And the music's going back up. So I apologize for everything that just happened. It seems like we got an update on StreamYard. The music quality sounds a lot worse. They have a fade tracks in and out button that doesn't seem to work. And it didn't give me a timer that we were live for a solid 20 seconds. So I don't know if we've been live for a minute now or 2 minutes. So we'll see what happened. You are muted, Colton.
Damn.
There you are. You've been talking this whole time.
Not the whole time, maybe, but a little bit at the time.
Yeah. So how's it going? You sent us a picture in our group text today. It looks like you've been having fun out there in Wyoming.
Yeah, it's bullshit. If you can see that, that's my truck window on the driver's side. You can see where the window is rolled down and the snow is still stuck to it. If you ever hear anyone wonder why Wyoming has so few people, this is fucking why right here. Is because the wind blows everything sideways and it sticks to shit when it snows. And it snows for 9 months of the year. So, unfortunately, we're still in that 9-month window and will be for probably another 30 days at least. So, yeah, this state is bullshit and I hate it.
Yeah, and he showed me another picture, but I couldn't get it to upload in the quality that was viewable. I always hear Southerners say that it's raining sideways, and, it's like maybe 45, 50 degree slant. He showed me this snow, and it was a solid 85 degrees, almost flat sideways coming out. How was the wind? Like, how was the wind speed?
The wind was actually pretty calm today. It was probably
really
25, 30, maybe. Yeah. It might have been gusting to 40, but it wasn't that bad.
Snow was coming down at like 85 degrees. Almost flat.
It does that. So I tell people that I've lived in several different states. The first time I ever saw snow fall straight down was when I lived in Montana. The first time I saw it rain straight down was when I lived in Vegas.
Never seen it rain straight down.
Yeah.
But you're planning on moving down here.
Yep.
You might not like the weather. But I can tell you this. I did not know moving up here to the Piedmont region, the upstate of South Carolina, that this is the highest allergy, pollen count place in the country. So, I have been dying these last few weeks. I didn't even know I had allergies until this spring. So, my first spring up here, you'll hear my voice kind of go scratchy. My throat is still dry, even though I've been on allergy meds for 3 weeks now. And I had a killer headache 2 weeks ago. There it goes again. So yeah, you're leaving one thing for another, but it's so bright green out here, man. Living in mid-South Georgia and Alabama, after the fall line, it didn't get this bright green. So the underbrush and everything is really pretty. So there's that.
Yeah, yeah, I'll trade you because it won't get green here for probably another 3 weeks. Yeah, and then it's not even green for but a month because then it gets so hot and dry here that it dries everything out and turns back brown. Brown and gray is our scenery.
Yeah. And then last night we actually drove up to past Asheville to do some stargazing because it was a new moon and 0% humidity / clouds in the sky. So I went and saw some stars I've never seen before in quote unquote the darkest park in the Carolinas. Do you at least get to see the stars at night?
Yeah, when it's not overcast and snowing and raining and shit. Yeah, we get pretty good. Pretty good views out here.
You also lived in Montana too, though, so that was probably a little better.
If you go out west of here, there's a state park, kind of in the mountains a little ways. And you can see some pretty cool shit. You can see the galaxy.
Yeah, we couldn't see that, but I'm not seeing that many stars in my life, even down on the island when I lived down there. So it was pretty neat. Anyways, welcome to this racing podcast. We've been talking about other shit for 5 minutes. So we'll start off tonight with Splash and Dash. This is a segment new for 2023 where we're just going to give you a rundown pit road. You'll take a splash and dash. Today's all about the IndyCar series. Well, except for our first point. So Kyle Larson hit big in another first of his career, taking his first dirt modified feature win in his first ever race in that type of car at Eldora Speedway this week.
Yeah, and back over to the open wheel side, IndyCar took to the streets of Long Beach, California for their second biggest race of the year, the Acura GP of Long Beach.
Now, after Friday practice saw faster than expected speeds, Saturday morning saw two very strange and violent crashes at the start of the session. Callum Ilott and Rinus VeeKay both cased a curb in turn 5 and launched into the outside wall's tire barrier, doing cone damage to the VeeKay car and causing Callum Ilott's car to be taken to the garage on the hook. During the practice broadcast, NBC crew actually alerted us that the teams that the reason for the crashes was a new curb tile being installed between Friday and Saturday's session.
Yeah, and the wildest part of that to me is that the team's drivers nor IndyCar were told about the change with Long Beach GP, officials stating we replaced the curbing that had been damaged and subsequently removed during the IMSA practice prior to IndyCar practice yesterday overnight and didn't think to notify anyone. Why would you? Because the curb has always been there in years past.
Yeah, and despite all that chaos in Saturday morning practice, Kyle Kirkwood, series sophomore, took his first NTT Fall Award of his short career, and then he followed it suit on Sunday's Grand Prix by taking the dominant and emotional first win of his young career.
Yeah, and this victory came at a much-needed time for team owner Michael Andretti as 4 Andretti Autosport cars failed to finish the season opener at St. Pete, and 3 of the 4 entries didn't make it out of Texas, including Kirkwood, who vaulted a stationary car in the season opener and was taken out entering a pit box at TMS.
Yeah, so a big weekend for the Andretti Autosport team with him sitting on the top step of the podium, and then Romain Grosjean finishing second as well, who was one of his teammates who DNF'd in the first 2 races. So I think there's not really much to talk about in that other than the practice crashes. I know you didn't watch any of the practice or maybe even the GP, but what do you think about that?
About them not notifying the teams and the drivers that they did a track change? I mean,
yeah.
Are we sure that NASCAR officials weren't out there?
I mean, IMSA. So the way that these races work, right? So obviously IMSA and NASCAR are 2 different officiating bodies, so they've got those there. But the GP of Long Beach is actually its own separate entity as well. So when you have these street courses, like when we go to Chicago Street Course, they're going to have their own entity, just like a regular racetrack would be, like Atlanta Motor Speedway or Talladega Motor Speed or Talladega Super Speedway. Those guys do maintenance on their own track. With the difference being, obviously, NASCAR has control over half the tracks and SMI has control over the other half of the track. So track crews are somewhat similar. They just do maintenance on this. So turn 5, it's not really curbs as you would see at, I guess, a normal racetrack. They're like a triangle on top of a square that kind of comes up and then drops steeply. And so they're like little bumps just to kind of let you know that you're, on the curbs. So Friday practice, the speeds were, I think, about 1.5 seconds faster because they were able to cut more of that corner. Mm-hmm. And so what happened is within the first 45 seconds of practice coming on, Callum Ilott cases that by casing, we mean hitting it with the underbody square under the driver's seat and just vaulting over it. Well, it upset his car so much he just smashed into the tire barrier. Red flag immediately after that, 30 or 40 seconds after that, red flag lifted. Rinus VeeKay does the same thing, and he hits it so hard that the only tire, the left rear, is on. That's the only tire on the track, and he bounced down. I don't know how he saved that car from having any more damage than just a front wing. and nose cone damage. But yeah, that's what happened. So they didn't tell anybody. They just replaced it overnight because it's been there for years. So they didn't think anything of it, despite the fact that they had a 75-minute session where they were taking more of that corner the previous day. So I don't know.
Weird.
That's fucking wild, man.
Yeah.
Like, how do you fuck up that bad? Like, IndyCar didn't even know. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, you didn't even notify the sanctioning body. I can understand if maybe, you told IndyCar and they just didn't think about telling teams or whatever. But that was wild. That was the weirdest thing of the weekend. Moving on to Martinsville, kind of blending NASCAR and IndyCar here. They both started at 3 p.m. on the TV. It was 12 p.m. local for Long Beach. What do you think about this?
I mean, I don't like it when, and I get that the broadcast partners, right, kind of get a lot of say in this. But I wish they would collaborate a little bit more because you're having a lot of crossover in viewership. Maybe not a ton, but probably at least 100,000, couple 100,000. And we know that it's probably going to take away from the IndyCar broadcast a lot more than it will the NASCAR broadcast. So it's not good for either sport to have that. I just I see why it happens, but I wish that there was more collaboration there.
Well, so first and foremost, last year this race was a night race at Martinsville, right? They changed it for obvious reasons for the cold and that stuff. So to me, why not start the Martinsville race at 12 p.m. so that you would have a 12 p.m. start and a 3 p.m. start. So maybe you missed the first part of the IndyCar race, but whatever. And that's 12 p.m. local for both sites. So that gets the people that are at the racetrack out faster at Martinsville. So there's that. Secondly, if it was ESPN, maybe I'd understand because they don't give a shit, right? But NBC is the ones who broadcast this, right? NBC do not put them head-to-head during their half of the season. Why would you do it when Fox is doing it? Yeah, you want to get those same numbers and whatever, but also you're kind of screwing yourself as a sport. Another thing, this was on NBC. This is the second biggest race in IndyCar's schedule. This is going to take a little bit of views from Martinsville because it's on Fox Sports 1. I'm just saying. So it was just not smart. If I was Fox, I would have put that on at noon. There's nothing else going on. Maybe you got, baseball at noon? But they usually do that stuff on Saturday anyways. So I just thought it was a really bad idea. And like you said, you're splitting a fan base that's already small at that, And if I'm Roger Penske, I'm begging them to put the cup race earlier too. I've already only got 17 races because I can't get through my thick skull that we need more.
Right.
So that's it. But moving on to Friday night and the truck series. Did you watch Friday night's race, or were you one of the ones that were like, this is just too late?
No, I watched a good chunk of it, and then when they were running all those parade laps, I turned it off. I said, this is bullshit. I'm not watching it. And then I flipped it on right as Hocevar turned into Hocevar again, and then immediately flipped it off after that.
Okay, well, let's talk about that first since you brought that up. So in the notes, I just put Carson Hocevar and then the three dot for the ellipsis. So is there anything to say about that, or is it just Carson Hocevar?
I mean, kid races like an ass. I mean, I don't even think you call that racing. Like, he does race like an ass, and then he's just an absolute ass whenever he feels like it. It seems weekly because we see him all the time intentionally spinning out to bring out a caution, right rearing other guys, just putting other people in the wall maliciously. He races like he's racing on a video game. Yeah. Not even like iRacing, because in iRacing you still get in trouble and penalized for that kind of shit. He belongs in a NASCAR heat lobby.
I think there are NASCAR heat lobbies that are cleaner than that.
I would agree. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just bullshit.
Yeah, my opinion on it's the same though as when we discussed who was it? Christopher Bell at Richmond. And we talked about how Ross Chastain got blamed for that because he's really the easy butt of the joke at this point. I could have understood him saying, "Oh, my right rear just popped," which it did, and that caused my truck to steer right to right rear the other guy. if this wasn't a Carson Hocevar like regular Friday night truck race, like,
Right.
I think he would not have gotten a 2-lap penalty if it wasn't him.
Yeah, but not only that, but like I've never on asphalt, I've never seen a car hook like that when they blow a rear tire. I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but I've never seen it.
Well, if I'm the driver in this point, I'm saying, well, that tire popped. It came completely off the rim. It folded under my axle, and I was already throttled up to come off the turn, and it just kind of snapped, and I couldn't get the wheel to go back fast enough, and I just took him out.
Yeah, I mean, and
I could plead my case like that, right?
There's probably a benefit of the doubt to be given.
If you're not Carson Hocevar.
If you're not Carson Hocevar. What I think happened was he got doored. He felt the tire going down or go down, and said kind of F you, and then hooked it. And that's, I think the tire went completely down and off the rim at some point in the whole maneuver. But I think he got hit, knew his tire was going down, and said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna ruin your day too." And he didn't, which is ironic. I think that was kind of the first rule of stock car racing: is if you're gonna wreck someone else, make sure you don't wreck yourself.
Yeah, and then he just fucking cased the goddamn.
Yeah, and that was he drove off.
Curb. Like, come on, man. I don't know. I like the guy as a person. He seems, okay, but like, come on.
Races like an asshat.
He I don't know. I like Joe Logano. He's an ass on the track, but he seems like a good dude.
Yeah.
Man, my throat's still like die right now. So, the rain delay itself, let's talk about that. It caused the race to be started a little bit after 9 p.m. on my coast, and it was rain shortened shortly after midnight. What do you think about the timing of this, and them not calling it, being that it is Friday and so late?
If it were the Cup race, I probably would be more vocal about them just cutting it short, moving it to the next day. Just because the Cup race is usually on Sunday, people got to work, but it's going into a Friday night where people are usually up anyway. So I don't have a problem with it, especially with it being the Truck Series. There's not a lot of viewers anyway. You might as well try to get this race in Friday night if you can, if you see a window, rather than push it to Saturday and try to force all those teams to stay there and then do a happy little truck dance at Martinsville, kind of midday. Being that it was at Martinsville too, I think played a lot into it of them trying to push this out and try to really get it in Friday night versus if it were like a Kansas or an Atlanta where they've got more garage space to play with. I think we probably would have seen them push it back, but it is what it is. I'm in Mountain Time, so the whole midnight thing didn't faze me because it was like 10 p.m. my time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, I think NASCAR put themselves in a bind by having all three at the track. That's a really small space for all those cars. And looking at the schedule going way towards the end of the season, you see they added this race for, I think, the trucks or Xfinity, one of the two, which is opposite of last year, where they gave one Richmond and one date at Martinsville. Well, no, they added Xfinity because now they've got two for the Xfinity and two for trucks. And I think if they just didn't add Xfinity, this would have been fine. And they took that date from Richmond for Xfinity Series. So I don't like that they did that, and I think that's the reason we couldn't have ran this race on Saturday, because NASCAR, I guess. But it kind of pissed me off that they called it, because if you're gonna start, finish it. I mean, they still had a good chunk of the race left. I think it was like 86 laps or something. So, I mean, we saw a lot, and we didn't really see such a shit show like we thought we would. And I mean,
They were also pretty early into the race yet.
Yeah, it's like, come on now. That was my only thing. Speaking of rain, though, we did have the rain wet weather tires. I just kind of want to do a discussion about this, see where we go with it. Not really harping on these main points, but like, what did you think about the overall execution?
I'm going to kind of turn this into my rant, my one of 4 or 5 rants that I do during the year. This was a complete shit show. The execution on this was god awful because the track was most of the way dry when they put them out for pace laps, and then they ran pace laps for like 15 minutes, further drying the track. Like by the time they went racing, they probably didn't even need the goddamn wet tires. The track looked, I mean, it kind of had a little glimmer to it on TV, but it wasn't. It was very clearly not wet or not damp. It was just a little bit misty, I would even call it, because within a couple laps, these trucks had already dried that track completely. I would have much rather have seen sitting and watching this race at home, them spin the jet dryers around for another 10 minutes, blow off pit road, just put the damn slicks on. Like if we're going to race these things in the wet, let's race them in the fucking wet.
Right.
Let's not race these things in the maybe kind of dry track. Like, fuck it. Let these guys try it out. If we're going to do this and run it as an experiment and run it as, so NASCAR has apparently done all this testing on it. They should know what these things will handle like. They should know what these tires will do, what they'll behave like. If we're going to run an experiment in a live race, what a better time to do it than at Martinsville in the Truck Series. I couldn't think of a better, maybe Richmond, I don't know, but Martinsville seems like about the perfect place because if it's still wet enough for these tires not to grip, they're not going to get the speed down the straightaway that you're going to, have any kind of concern over. They're not going to have the grip in the corners, obviously, so they're not going to want to try to test it as much. And it's in the Truck Series. Like, let these guys try it out. Let's see what this does, and then if it works well enough, we'll implement it Sunday if we need to. But now we're in a point where they didn't test them to the ability. They're not wet tires anymore. They're just shredded tires, in my opinion. Yeah. Now, what's this going to look like when NASCAR goes to a short track and they actually have to run these things in the wet? Maybe to try to fit a TV window, or maybe because they're racing darkness. Are we going to see him just say, fuck it and screw the race and never mind these wet tires that we spent all this money on? Yeah. Or are we going to see a complete shit show because the Cup guys are going to push it to the limit?
Well, about the rain shortened race, like that's kind of what I was getting at. We really should have seen this because of that. And not them calling it at midnight. Here's the thing. Everything that you said, I agree with, except for maybe the Truck Series part, because maybe NASCAR was like, hey, these truck guys are kind of dumb, and they put on shit shows at tracks that they are,
that are hard to put shit shows on it.
So like Knoxville, here at Martinsville a couple of years ago, the same year that we had the Knoxville stuff, and I think that was 21. Maybe that's why they didn't want to do it. However, this is on brand for NASCAR, in my opinion. I mean, let's do something as half-assed as possible.
Right.
Everything that you said about doing it with the wet track, it was basically a dry track. It raced really good, and I think listening to Dale Jr. and Denny Hamlin about it, all they did was show that treaded tires that wear are possibly a way to fix the Cup cars. But looking at it from another standpoint, they did probably 15 laps under caution before they got that race started to continue to dry the track. I don't understand why we didn't roll the trucks out maybe on the back straightaway or something, or on the front straightaway, like an F1 grid, and let the jet dryers do 6 to 8 passes of pit road, and that be the end of it.
Yeah.
I don't agree with the fact that they said that pit road conditions might be different for each truck team. That's why we're not going to do live pit stops because whatever. It's a truck series, so maybe if that was the case in the Cup series, which it will be because they're going to do a half-ass job, I think that's bullshit because they're the best teams in the world. They can get around it. 2, I don't like that they didn't let these guys put on slicks when they wanted to. They called a caution to put on slicks. If we were going to go back wet racing during the race at any time, just like they do at road courses, they're going to call a caution to come put wet tires on. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
It's just half-assed. We are racing here. We are not just putting on a sound exhibition.
This isn't a parade. Like,
this is not monster trucks. We actually have skill here.
Right.
We're not out here to just go wah,
Yeah.
No, we're out here to watch these drivers be tested in as many ways as they can be. And what better way to use this, all this money that you spent on this new package than to see it in action?
Yeah.
Because I feel like we could have started that race, I don't know, an hour and 45 minutes earlier as soon as the rain stopped because it never was soaking wet. All you had to do was push the trucks out or even just put the wet tires on them, let them drive out and stop on the front straightaway, let the crews come, do whatever they need to do to warm or cool the oil up, air pressures, whatever. Eight passes. Let the jet drivers do 8 laps. In the pits. Yep. And that's it. They shut everything off when they get onto the back stretch. When they come back in at turn 3, turn the air tightens and the jet dryers right back on. There you go.
Yep. Make sure there's no standing water. Call it good.
Or you can make the teams make sure there's no standing water. All the walls on pit roads all the tracks that I've been have the little bitty openings of 2 to 3 inches that are at the bottom of each wall. Just push that shit out with a fucking broom. Not like we haven't done that at a machine shop or something when we've been at work. Like, come on now. But yeah, it's just poor execution. I hated it. It put on damn good racing. I will say that, but I hated the execution.
Yeah,
we'd have got that whole race in because we'd have ran through the rain, and obviously they could do it because they did it on the damp racetrack. I feel like they would have been able to do it on a wetter racetrack because the Xfinity guys did that shit in a goddamn monsoon at the Roval on banking at that. So, fuck it. Send them out there. Probably got 80 or 90 laps on there before they had to dry or take them off or put them back on. So we could have seen rain at the front and the back end of this race and potentially 2 areas where tire strategy comes into play where like, okay, we're 2.5 seconds off the pace that we started at with these rain tires and there's a dry line. Can we come and get stickers?
Right.
And put slicks on. And that's what I love about watching wet races in IndyCar, IMSA, and Formula One because it adds to the strategy.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Terrible execution, just unnecessary hand-holding by NASCAR.
Yeah. I mean, that's how – I think they're just – I don't know. I don't know that they are race fans. I don't know that they watch racing. I just think they're a bunch of executives and Nepo babies that don't know what the hell they're doing. And I say that knowing damn well that I just asked for a fucking press media pass for the podcast and the website. I just feel that way. I feel like the real people who have worked in the sport through their lives don't have the ability to say anything and critique them because they just shove it off. That's why Tony Stewart left. That's,
right.
I don't know. This is one of those things that can be beautiful for the sport. And it's not.
Yeah, Jeff Burton would do a lot of good for NASCAR. Put him in an executive role. But I don't think they were going to, or even offer him a spot, whether or not he'll take it. I don't even think they're going to offer it because they're afraid of what he's going to say and what he's going to do. We already hear him kind of, nipping on DBC's heels when they call him out for doing something wrong. We've already seen what they'll do to Denny Hamlin for saying anything on his fucking podcast. Dale Jr. is probably the same way. If he wasn't Dale Jr., they'd probably harp on him a lot.
Yeah.
I think there's a reason they haven't offered any of those roles to guys like Jr., to guys like Burton. Even Steve Letarte, I think, would be a great guy for it. Ray Evernham, Tony Stewart. But there's a reason they haven't been offered the jobs, and that's because they're going to go in and try to clean house.
The suits at NASCAR are the CEOs and upper management that we have that look at each other dumbfounded because they don't understand why we keep quitting our jobs.
Pat themselves on the back.
Yeah, because they don't understand the whole pizza party thing and working hard as fuck for 12 hours a day, and some new guy comes on and gets $3 more than you have, and you've been there for 10 years, like that kind of shit. Like,
Yep.
Why is everybody quitting? It's the same. It's the same mentality. They're clueless, and I don't think that they have the passion for the sport that the people that work in the sport do.
Yeah, 100%.
We'll get into the rest of the rant that I was about to go on later. So anyways, nothing really else for the truck race because it did finish under yellow. Let's move to Saturday in the Xfinity race. What did you think about the racing there?
It was all right. There wasn't anything super memorable. I was really hoping that someone had a little something more for John Hunter, but he was a dominant car all goddamn day. Nothing super memorable. I mean, it was a good race. It just wasn't a fantastic race.
Yeah, it was decent. It was what I would expect from racing at any of these short tracks.
It's a short track race.
I mean, it wasn't, like you said, spectacular. I will say this. I thought that it kind of turned into a shit show for an Xfinity race, though, because they had a lot of cautions there near the end.
Yeah, but it wasn't as shit showy, being that we didn't have a green-white checkered at the end and guys running each other over, which is, at that rate, kind of what I was expecting to happen. I think that last run was, 10, 12 laps or something like that?
Yeah.
Maybe it was a little bit more. But I was fully expecting to have a late caution and NASCAR force it into a green-white checkered scenario. But ultimately it finished clean. Like I said, I just wish someone would have had something for John Hunter, because goddamn, I hate seeing that dude win.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't bother me when we have a dominant car.
No.
But so that's just something that is person by person.
I just wish it wasn't John Hunter that had the dominant car.
Yeah, well, I can say the same thing for a couple of other drivers. It didn't bother me, but what did bother me, I'm going to be honest with you, is the burnout that you see below me right here. Hats off to the guy. I will say that. Hats off to the guy for thinking about doing this. But after watching Zane Smith's car burn up in flames at Coda, I was like, this is fucking dumb. We need to really think about how long it takes to put the rain package on and off. Probably 10 minutes. If it's not going to rain, let's not do it. I don't know what the forecast was, so maybe they did need it. But to purposefully burn your car down for a sponsor plug has got to be simultaneously the dumbest and biggest bald move I've ever seen.
We will see if it was dumb, depending on how many races this sponsor re-signs for.
Well, apparently they're NASCAR's fire extinguisher company. So, I mean,
if they're paying the bills.
So I could see this becoming a normal thing moving forward. So I think NASCAR might want to step in on this one.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good look. One time, cool, right? Let's burn the fucker down. Let's have a little video reel to play. But if this starts becoming an issue, and by start becoming an issue, if this happens again, I'm going to be pretty pissed, because now we're just wasting race cars in an era where NASCAR is making all these changes in attempt to save teams money. Yeah. Meanwhile, letting the teams burn their own fucking cars down, trying to celebrate a win.
Yeah. And to that point, I've seen a lot of people who are like, earlier this year, we talked about how we were kind of growing out of green, white checkers and stage racing and all this stuff. Well, there's other people that are growing out of burnouts. They're saying that 20 years on from the first one that Kevin Harvick did to now, it's just kind of not even cool anymore because you expect it. So, what is your opinion on that?
I mean, I don't. If a guy wants to do a burnout, he can do a burnout, right? I'm never going to say no to a good burnout, but I am going to say no to shit show burnouts or people trying to one up each other in the burnouts. I don't like that. Like, take a couple spins, celebrate your win. Awesome. Logano is fantastic at doing burnouts, so I don't mind watching his. But and a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I do not fucking like Kyle Larson burning out the entire lap at Martinsville.
I don't like it either. You want to know why?
I think that's fucking cheesy.
Because Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin are good friends, and Kyle Larson just stole all the thunder from Denny Hamlin, who did it at Martinsville and New Hampshire first.
Yeah.
Fuck Kyle Larson. Okay, it was cool when it was done, and that was Denny's thing in 2016, and he hasn't done it since. Fucking no. Get your own fucking celebration, punk.
Yeah, he had one. The steering wheel out the window.
Oh, NASCAR put a shutdown to that. So
well, he can put a foot right up their ass then.
Yeah. I mean, that was cool as shit. I don't know if it would work with the next gen car. I don't know how different the rack and pinion is compared to the standard steering operation that we have, though.
Fuck around, find out.
Yeah. I am all for unique celebrations. I am not for this one if JHM decides that's what he's going to start doing for his sponsor. Even though I get it. Once we start talking about fire, we're getting into an area of kind of, is this guy going to get out? Is the fumes going to harm him in the long term? And when it comes to health, I don't play around with that shit.
One last thing on burnouts is I like burnouts, right? Just as much as the next guy, but I don't like shitty burnouts. I don't like it when you just park the nose at the wall and do it Jimmy Johnson style and just roast the tires like John Hunter did. Like, if you're going to do a burnout, give me a goddamn burnout. I'd rather see you stuff the nose into the wall on trying to spin it around than just parking it against the wall and stomping your foot in it.
On that as well, for the Kyle Larson burnout, that dude barely made any smoke because he was going too fast. When Denny did it, he burnt them bitches down. And there was smoke all the way around from turn 2 to turn 3 at New Hampshire, and when he did it at Martinsville as well, until he hit the curb in turn 4. But yeah, I don't know. I'm down for unique stuff, but you got to get your own shit, Kyle Larson.
Yeah,
you win enough, you ought to have something by now. If NASCAR told you couldn't do your other one. It's like the bow, the backflip, that kind of stuff. Let's do that. But
yeah.
Other than that,
or do it at Talladega. Like, let me.
Yeah, 2.66 miles. You're gonna have to do it at Coda.
Yeah.
That shit's almost 4 miles.
Yeah, that would really impress me if I saw a 6-minute burnout around Coda.
Yeah, or you know what? Just go through the stadium section and drift like fucking Shane Van Gisbergen and V8 supercars. All right, so the Cup race Sunday should have been earlier in the day. We already talked about that. Let's talk about the racing itself, because obviously we had a meltdown on social media. However, did we actually see improvements with the 300 pounds of downforce gone?
Slim, because guys could pass, as opposed to last spring when we saw it. There was virtually no passing. We only saw, I think it was 3 lead changes under green this year. I don't know. I don't remember how many we had last year. It wasn't very many, and this wasn't very many either.
I think it was 0 at the spring race. I think Byron led almost every lap.
Yeah. So, I mean, slight improvements, but not enough to where the average fan, if you showed them both of the races, could tell you a difference between the two. We're still in gridlock. As soon as you get in any kind of traffic, you're kind of just stuck there after a restart. And not only that, the only green flag pass that we had, and Denny alluded to this on his podcast, where the guys were on the same tire strategy, was when he passed Briscoe for the lead. That was it. Other than that, there was massive tire strategy difference between the two.
Yeah, it was not great by any means, but I'm gonna have to disagree with you to say that we saw marginal differences. I don't know. I know Denny made this comment. I don't know what the green flag passing stats were, but they're way better than they were last year. I guarantee you. We saw a lot more midfield battles on Sunday than we did both races combined last year. So, in my opinion, the outrage should be checked a little bit.
Well, I mean, but
because
still, at this point, we're comparing a goose turd to a pigeon turd. Like, it's still shitty.
yeah, but I mean, we've worked ourselves into a hole that I mean.
But I'm not gonna praise shit.
Well, I mean, we like the Richmond race. We like the Phoenix race. They were miles better than last year.
I didn't like the fucking Phoenix race. Richmond was good.
Yeah. The thing about this race though is like it looked promising to me compared to last year. So if I'm comparing it to last year, I actually think this was a pretty decent race. It's just I don't know. It wasn't as bad as everybody's saying, and I get that they have the right to an opinion, but like if you guys go back and watch races from Martinsville from the 90s, like this was better. I'm sorry. We only got good Martinsville in the 2000s and 2010s. Like if you go back and talk about this golden era of NASCAR that everybody talks about with their rose tinted glasses, I think yesterday was probably better.
I mean, if you're watching only the top 5, sure, yeah, it was better. But like Ryan Preece was the fastest car in practice, was the fastest car in qualifying, was the fastest car when he got to the lead or when he took off in the lead. And then as soon as he got shuffled back in the pack, couldn't make any passes and ended up going laps down.
Dude sucks.
And that's not
sorry. Dude sucks.
That's not on a
look at Brian Blaney passed 18 or 19 cars in the first run from the back.
Different.
Why couldn't Ryan Preece do it if he had such a great car?
Because the fucking traffic was different at that point in the race.
Because
then you're adding in different strategies and shit. And then you're not only that, but like the package is way fucking different once you get these things warmed up. The track went through changes. Like we raced on 2 completely different tracks, stage 1, stage 2.
Well, I'm just saying everything that everybody was harping on, they just parroted what they said last year. And we got, I would say, 50% there.
I would say you're looking at this current race through rose-colored glasses.
I don't know about that.
If I just showed you the stats, cool, yeah, like looks fucking good. But if you watch the races and you watch other than the top 5, I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
I feel like the midfield pack had some passing going on, despite what drivers were saying.
Despite what the guys who were actually participating in the race were saying, yeah.
Of course, they're going to say they don't think they can pass because they can't.
They know if they can pass or not. Because they know what it feels like.
They're not going to admit that they suck. Just like
that's like us saying a 95 mile an hour fastball doesn't look fast and that the batters are just bitches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They throw 105 now. 95 is not that bad.
Yeah. Well, 100 green does. I don't know about.
I can do that. But anyways, no, I mean, I'm kind of trolling at this point. I mean, let's not get on the fact that I think that this was a godsend of a race. I just think we need to look back at this race and say, wow, this was actually better than what we got last year. And a 30% improvement over last year is a fucking milestone because goddamn.
Yeah, I agree. It was better than the spring, but I'm not in any kind of point to call it a good race.
Okay.
It was decent. I'll give it decent at best.
I did not want to sleep the whole time. And so that is the metric at Martinsville with the next gen car that I think needed to be hit. This time. Okay. Well. All right. Well,
90 to go. I was really debating a nap, and I knew I couldn't get more than 20 minutes in before they ran 90 fucking laps at Martinsville.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the next points. I think, we've talked about it. Denny and Dale, they A, want to get rid of shifting, and B, want to use treaded tires after seeing the truck race.
Get rid of shifting, 100%. I'm not sold on the treaded tires idea. I think if you get rid of shifting, the tires you'll have to fight the tires a lot more because you won't just be able to grab another gear and change the RPM.
I think what they're saying is we saw the blocks on the treaded tires actually wear, and that's what we don't have, and we haven't had since 2015, since NASCAR went down this horsepower road, because our mid-corner speeds are higher. And then, the shifting, I don't think shifting ruined races at Phoenix or Pocono back in 2012, but we had higher horsepower too, and we had tire wear. But when you can grab the gears, when they're shifting on a fucking dirt track at Bristol, there's something wrong. You don't shift on dirt. Well, mostly because obviously they only have high and low gear, but or as my dad says, pit and race gear. But
regardless of the treaded tires would be a quicker fix to the horsepower problem, because that's the big elephant in the room is there's not enough horsepower, and I think most everyone is in consensus with that, is that we can use a little bit more horsepower for the top racing series in America. The treaded tires would be a Band-Aid.
So that was actually the next point on the notes. Everyone wants more horsepower. We've been saying that since 2015. Let's be honest. Harvick retweeted Bob Pockris saying 1,000 horsepower, order it. I just saw a TikTok from a guy with like 14 likes, not to bully him or anything, because we don't get that many viewers here, but he was like, could Harvick come back if they gave us 1,000 horsepower? Probably not. He's got a contract with Fox. And he hates the shitty parts. So, but the OEM reps, Ford and Toyota, have come out and say this, that we are at least a year out for getting these parts. So if we wanted them for 2024, we'd have to start now. And even then, basically, it might be like a part shortage type deal that we had last year at the beginning of the season.
Order them now for 2025. The problem's not going away.
Yeah.
That's like saying I don't want to order a new fridge because by the time it gets here, my food will be bad. You're going to
have to buy new food anyways, bud.
We're going to still have this problem regardless of how many Band-Aids we put on it, right? The treaded tires would help it. Getting rid of the shifting would help it. But ultimately, that's the big problem, right? We got a tooth that needs to be pulled. Let's fucking yank it out. Let's quit putting Orgel on the sumbitch.
Yeah. And the thing is, there are a bunch of things that I think that we could do to Band-Aid this very quickly. There is no way that Goodyear can't make treaded tires tomorrow. They've got the technology because they're doing it for the wet tires anyways. That would immensely help these short tracks just based on tire wear. Shifting. They can limit the RPMs to make it to where they don't shift into fifth gear because they did it at Bristol. So we can do that. We can supplement horsepower with torque or drive, however you want to say it, by putting the ability to wind more RPM through the engine. And we can do all that very quickly. Whether or not their motors last, that's not a problem. You get 13 now anyways because you wanted to save the team's money, but they're spending it elsewhere. They'll just spend it back on the motor program if they have to. Right. So all these cost-saving measures are doing nothing but hurting the product, and the product is hurting the fan attendants, and the fan attendants hurting the TV, and the TV is hurting the sponsorship money, and the sponsorship money is hurting the teams again because you won't fucking give them the fucking money because you don't want to renew the charters and you don't want to do the same type of revenue sharing that you see in all other American sports leagues. So yeah, that was my little mini rant. That's where we're at. That's why we have these problems.
Yeah. I mean, dog chasing stuff, right? Yeah. One thing is snowballing into a big problem. Yeah, the horsepower would fix it. Let's quit dicking around. Like, let's get the shit. Let's be serious about it.
Let's Band-Aid it. Let's Band-Aid this shit because we know we need to. Admit we were wrong and then say we have a timeline 2024, we're going to have these Band-Aids. We're going to have these Band-Aids at the end of the year. We're going to have more Band-Aids then because we want to keep we want to keep the teams on their toes.
Right.
We're just say we're going to do this for the next 3 short tracks. We're going to do this for the first 3 short tracks next year. This for the last 3 short tracks next year. That way that the teams can exercise all of the underbody stuff that they've got, all of this that they've got. We're going to, and wind up, even if you got to take the fucking spoiler off at this point, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. Just change the package a little bit each time. And then 2024, 2025, give me 1,000 horsepower. Yeah. And then I made this other point just so I didn't forget. We were at between 900 and 959 horsepower in 2014. That was where we were at. We could not have forgotten how to build those motors if we, quote unquote, can't unlearn aero.
Let's mix the two. I don't see why we can't have great aerodynamics mixed with high horsepower.
Well, my thing is if we can't unlearn the aero is what we're saying about why these races suck, because everything's so aero necessity racing now. Did we fucking forget how to build big engines in 10 years?
I mean, even to that point, teams will always remember how to make car go fast in the slipstream, right, and messing with the air. But if you give them a big motor, that throws a huge wrench in the aero plans. So now you're going to have to pick at some tracks whether you want the aero dependency or whether you want the straight line speed. At Martinsville, obviously, they're probably going to pick big motor, right? But at tracks like a Pocono, like a Kansas, you might have very differing strategies. And you might, if you open the box a little bit for the teams, you're going to have some teams that are going to be way faster in the corners than everyone else. And you're going to have some teams that are going to be absolutely spitting on everyone in the straightaway.
Well, the problem is with the new bodies, which I don't think is actually a problem when you look at the Xfinity series, is that when it comes down to aero, you don't have guys shaping the body anymore. You don't have the ability to manipulate anything. You got what you got. But the more horsepower you have, the more the driver can manipulate stuff. So I don't know. I don't get it. These guys are still spending the same amount of money. And Joe Gibbs Racing is still asking for $20 million a year for a sponsor, even though they're not, spending money to have 2 engines a weekend, and they have one for every 3 because they've got 13 engines now instead of whatever the fuck 36 times 2 is, 72, whatever, yeah. 80 engines, whatever.
We've heard for almost 10 years now that they're bringing the horsepower down to bring in new manufacturers, right? New OEMs, because that'll entice them. That has gone absolutely nowhere. Absolutely fucking nowhere. In fact, it's actually driven Dodge further away from the sport because they do not want to be here at the low horsepower.
Yeah. So, my whole thing is, if you really want OEMs, look at the car markets. What are the car markets doing? They're going to hybridization, they're going to e-fuel, and they're going to electricity. We don't want electric racing. We want the sound that's half the battle when you take someone to a racetrack. So you've got 2 options here. You've got e-fuel, V8s, or you've got probably V6 hybrids, like the Ford EcoBoost. I'm down for either one of those, right? Because the biofuels that they're using in the hypercars in IMSA and WEC are putting out pretty fucking decent sized power. Oh, and they're hybrids as well. So as soon as they get to 130K on a straightaway, they get a boost of 60 to 110 horsepower, depending on their balance of power. So if you really want to do OEMs, you would stop using dinosaur technology in 2000, and we see fuel injection in 2000, and then by the time we get to 2010, you announce a hybrid system coming, and we're racing that shit by 2016.
Yeah.
So I don't believe them at all. I never have. And the only thing, me and my dad we would complain every single week in 2015 about how the mid corner speeds were up, and that was causing the racing to be shittier, and they just kept doubling and tripling down on it. And you heard it this week. Denny Hamlin said 0.2 seconds of fall off for every 50 horsepower. And, he said, 950 to 670 is 300 horsepower. So that fall off is virtually non-existent because you're taking, I think he said like 1.2 seconds of fall off compared to 1 point or
Essentially
2.6
zero.
or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Very
Kind of went off on a
irritating.
tangent there, but that is what it is. well, and you know what the big thing is though? We went off on that tangent, but so did every Dirty Mo podcast. So did the Teardown. So does the Gay Racing podcast. Above the Yellow Line, LTC. We're all saying that, but the suits just la 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 la.
I mean, these guys are openly saying it in the garage. Like,
yeah.
Yep.
Kevin Harvick saying 100 horsepower, order it. I mean, that is a wet dream, honestly. If I went to a race and saw 1,000 horsepower, 36 1,000 horsepower cars on the track, I might die of a heart attack or of bliss because of just how giddy I was. But anyways, next one. Speaking of Jeff Gluck and the teardown, they said that stage racing and tire fall off were basically canceling each other out. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing we've always seen. Guys are still going to try different strategies, but it's not always going to play out just because of the mandatory cautions that we have. Yeah, it's to be expected at this point.
Yeah, I will say the most passing that you saw started happening at the end of these runs, and by that time we were throwing stage yellows. So
yeah, exactly.
If we went 500 laps, which we only go 400 for whatever reason in spring now, if we went 500 laps green, I mean, we would have seen some pretty good midfield stuff. I mean, probably the guy up front would have still won, but I mean that always happens, especially if you look at short tracks in the past. You have 1 to 3 guys that are seconds in front of the others, no matter what package that we've had. So don't wear your rose tinted glasses.
Yeah. I will be right back. I am literally about to pee myself.
Okay.
I know this is a PG podcast, but holy crap, I gotta pee.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good luck. Well, on that note, I will say we've been on some rants here. Our next one is Joe Logano was 2 laps down, but he went to the front because of the green flag pit stop cycle and that caution that happened. So it's interesting that we see this with the tire fall off not really being there. You heard guys talking about not really being able to pass, but the most interesting thing is to me that you could just stay out on old tires. And that's not the first time that we've seen that this year. So this is not necessarily a Martinsville problem when it comes to the tires. So adding to the further the rant that we just had, basically, I mean, at this point, it's all down to tires. Joe Logano should not have been able to go from 2 laps down to the lead. Or to the lead pack, I should say, and stay up there. If his car was that good, he should have been up there. If his car was that bad, he shouldn't have been up there all day. I mean, he shouldn't have been up there. Not to say that a caution coming out during a green flag pit stop at Martinsville wouldn't pole vault people and catch other people 2 laps down, because it would, most certainly. But I don't know, man. Being able to stay up front, that kind of stuff just bothers me. And the only time that it didn't really happen was when James Small kept the 19 out at Las Vegas. So we got to get something with these tires, man. And fuck, we've been saying that since 2015. So there's that. Speaking of tires, there's been one sitting on the exit of turn 4 this whole podcast that I just noticed.
Weird.
Isn't that funny? I'm going to let you handle this because I've already said enough about NASCAR today, and being that I was raised as a track official, I don't think that it would be a very nice conversation.
Yeah, it's incompetence is the one word I would use to describe this. It's you have so many officials allegedly looking at every corner, looking at every area of the racetrack. I understand that the tower can't see it from there, right? It's kind of tucked up against the wall, but you've got a flagman that can see it. You've got crews hooping and hollering on the radio, drivers hooping and hollering on the radio. The TV broadcast showing it, cutting away, showing it again. What the fuck are we doing? Are we just like pulling people off the street, or are we just flipping coins of like whether or not we want to call this a caution? I don't give a shit if it was in the middle of green flag pit cycles like we saw at Kansas that one year where Chris Buescher was smoking everyone, trying to get a caution to come out. If that thing gets hit, it's going one of two places. It is going in the grandstands or it is going in the pits. That's it. That's the only place it's going to go because you're going to hit it at an angle. It's either going to catch the catch fence or it's going to go over the motherfucker. This was incredibly close, and we are incredibly lucky that no one got fucking hurt and that tire didn't roll back down the track and get hit, that nothing happened. We have people watching every single car on the track. Why, when that thing came off, was there not an immediate fucking yellow? It is complete and utter incompetence. If this ruins our media pass, I don't give a shit because fuck NASCAR for that.
Yeah. So if you would have been in my house Sunday, you would have heard pretty much verbatim me yelling at the TV exactly what Colton said, which, I mean, some of those points I pointed out in in our group message that, you know, I was fucking livid.
4 laps.
4 laps, yeah. 4 laps is 17 seconds times 4. That's a minute and 15 seconds.
Over a minute, yeah.
I'll
give them the benefit of the doubt and say 60 seconds exactly, or even 50. Way too fucking long.
How fast are you exiting off of 4? Probably what, 110 mile an hour?
Maybe a little less than that.
You know, if you skate out to the wall because you're battling some guys 3 wide, because they were 3 wide in that race a lot, because these cars can handle 3 wide at Martinsville. And you hit that. First of all, think about the implications of you hitting that. It's gonna fucking hurt. It's gonna destroy the car. And with the rigidity of that car, it's going to directly impact your guts, because that's a big ass fucking hit. I'm talking about probably harder than the Hail Melon was on Ross. Secondly, like you said, that tire is 80 pounds. It might even be heavier than 80 pounds now, with the fact that it's wider, so there's more of it. I don't know if maybe the aluminum, is lighter. So
75.
Yeah,
like still.
I mean, you're.
That's
it was filled with air, so it's going to bounce like a fucking basketball, because we've seen fucking tires do that. Like when Justin Haley's fell off during the 500, or maybe it was Atlanta, I can't remember. That some bitch gets hit at 110 or 100 mile an hour. It's going to go fast at 100 mile an hour.
It's going up.
It's going to go wherever its trajectory is. It's going to kill the flagman. It's going to kill somebody on pit road, or it's going to kill somebody in the stands.
Yeah.
Totally unacceptable. You said that they have 4 people. They have 2 guys in the corners. They have 1 guy on the flag, 2 guys on the flag stand technically, and 1 guy on the spotter stand. I don't give a shit what they're looking at. If it takes TV to get the notice on it, that's
too long.
Too long. Yeah.
TV should have to find it, not point it out.
As a flag man, you can fucking see the racetrack, especially, I don't know, probably at Martinsville. You can probably see the entirety of the latter half of 3 to the front half of 2, depending on how tall that flag stand is. This motherfucker was staring right down at it. I don't give a damn what protocol is. If you see something that dangerous, turn the fucking lights on. And I know you can fucking do that, because it's the same at every NASCAR track with those wheeling lights. Flip the bitch on. I don't give a damn if they get mad. I'm not in good conscience going to be able to do that. There are times where I've worked at Atlanta Motor Speedway, which is a little bit more rigid with the legend stuff, where I've chimed in and said, hey, we got something on the track, and during road course races or whatever, do we want to throw a yellow? Whatever. But never in my life would I allow something like this to, if it looks like it could hurt someone, immediate yellow. And I put it all on the flag, man, not NASCAR. Because if you're too scared for the repercussions that you might have to potentially save someone's life, you're a pussy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 100%.
You don't need to be on.
We've seen a lot of bullshit non-yellow calls. This is definitely top 3 for me.
Yeah, this is number 1 for me, honestly.
The only one I could think that was top of this was when who's the truck guy sitting on the fucking track and got smoked.
Yeah.
That one's these are fucking neck and neck, because at one time you have 2 drivers that could have been killed, and this one you have fans and crew guys that could have been killed.
Yeah, I forgot about that one, and I was at the fucking race. But no, because we were sitting right behind there. He was there for 2.5 laps. We were sitting like he parked in front of our section, and I get that he was in a black truck or whatever, but I mean, if you can't see the difference between 2 shades of gray/black on a racetrack, you shouldn't be on the flag stand.
The fucking roof number, like the roof number was black.
His number 14 is white with a fluorescent orange around it, just like this guy. And his rear spoiler on those trucks are also orange. If you can't see any of that, you don't need to be there. That's another one. How do you not call that?
Yeah, and how do you not notice? BJ McLeod limped all the way around the track.
It was Anthony Alfredo in the car.
Excuse me, Anthony Alfredo. Yeah, the McLeod car. Lost the tire, limped it all the fucking way around the track, and then back onto pit road, and then got to his pit stall before the caution was called. How do we not notice a car fucking limping on 3 tires?
I don't know if the tire, I don't remember if it was his right or left rear, but if it was his left rear, I will say the spotters in the corners would not have seen that. However, that car being as slow as it was should have been red flags going off. Like, okay, what do we need to look at? But it doesn't seem like they even noticed that the 78 was slowed down. I don't know. Yeah. Just absolutely, positively unacceptable, embarrassment, and honestly, I don't know. If something would have happened, we would have been making a way different fucking podcast today. If that tire got hit because guys were 3 wide, and you saw Bubba Wallace have to move himself into, I don't remember what car he was battling to get around the thing, and he was only 2 wide in the shot where they first showed it.
Yeah.
I don't want to know what would have happened, but I'm pretty sure it would have been very costly, or somebody would have lost their life.
It would have been a bad day. Yeah. It would have been a really bad day.
Yeah, and NASCAR canceled at that point.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm glad that we only had to talk about it like this, if it had to happen. So that's pretty much everything. We've hit all the points on that. I mentioned at the point, was the race actually that bad? Which, I mean, you stepped in and basically told me, yeah, it was, and I'm just trying to cover for NASCAR, which, I mean, I've been known to do. So, but there's a conversation that I wanted to have specifically with you over fan opinions for a little bit. So stepping away from racing, because we all know the volatility of the fan bases when it comes into NASCAR making changes, formats, and whatever, and how it's been a genuine argument since about literally every little thing since the inception of the sport. And let's slide into home plate. The MLB has been in play for what, 3.5, maybe even 4 weeks now. And they have new rules. They have a pitch clock, basically 20 seconds. You've got to, if a batter or if a runner's on base, to throw the pitch. 15 seconds on the first batter, or if there's no one on base, batter has to be ready at 8 seconds. This as well as bigger bases, so they're I think 18 inches rather than 16 inches or something like that. I don't know.
Slightly.
And they've got a pick rule now, so you can only throw a pick 3 times before the runner steals the base automatically. And then one that you corrected me on was a runner on second for extra innings. We saw this, you said, come in 2020, right?
I believe it's 2020.
Yeah. That was new to me. And then the no shift rule, keeping the shortstop and the second base guy in the dirt as well as on their plane of the field. All of these things have culminated in shorter games by around an average of 28 minutes, including games with extra innings, an uptick in runs, an uptick in strikeouts, stolen bases, and then I guess it's really, from my point of view, I don't know, you're the guy that played baseball. I'm a brand new fan. Basically, these rules sounded exciting enough for me to check out baseball. I have watched, I think, 12 of the Braves games this year, including going to one over Bristol Dirt on Easter, because I felt like I would have more fun at that. So opinions on these rules have ranged from very positive for new fans like myself and people that primarily watch on TV, which honestly is all baseball fans because they play so many damn games, to lifers stating that it's ruining the game for various reasons. Basically because it's new is what I feel. But since you played baseball in college, since you are way more of a baseball fan than me, what do you think are, I guess, the negatives from this side? And do you even like the new rules?
So big suitcase to unpack here, right? You mentioned it yourself. You're watching more baseball games now, right? You're going to games over NASCAR races. Great. Perfect. That's exactly what these rules were supposed to do, was draw people in to watch games more often, to stay the entire length of the games, to draw new fans in. Awesome. If it's working, cool. I fall somewhere in the middle of liking and hating them. There's some that I like. There's some that I don't like. The pitch clock, I'm fine with to a degree. I wish they would make it a little longer. I would be fine with 30 to 40 seconds. That's still, for some at-bats, is a pretty quick turnaround compared to what we were seeing. There was a guy in the 80s, I forget his name, but they used to call him the human rain delay because he would literally take like a minute to 90 seconds in between pitches.
Yeah.
So cool, we're shortening games down. I'd like to see the pitch clock extended just a little bit because as a batter, if I'm up in the box and I get my bell buzzed by 90-something miles an hour, right? Pitch coming right at my head and I got to move out of the way.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to step back in there in 7 seconds. I'd like to catch my breath a little bit. Because if you've never played, the fastest pitch speed I ever faced in the batter's box was 92 miles an hour. And holy shit, it is so fast you cannot comprehend. And that is 92.
Yeah.
And these guys are all the time.
Yeah, I know from what I've watched, I think the pitch clock is definitely the biggest of people whining and complaining about it. But to me, I think it needs to be changed a little bit. We obviously need, I think, for your walk-on, your first pitch, maybe 60 seconds to come out your first of the game for the home team only, because fuck the away guys. And then from there, 45 seconds for your first pitch when you come up to bat, and for the away team. Every other time, I think 20 seconds is fine. I don't think 15 seconds with no batter on the base is necessary. I think 20 seconds is fine, but I've never played baseball.
Yeah, and there's the big issue is a rhythm thing, and this will change as kids start growing up with this rule, much like it did in NBA with the shot clock, right? Everyone's used to it now. Yeah. But when you're on the mound, you get into a rhythm of, just like, the only thing I compare to is you driving at Martinsville or Bristol, right? A lot of rhythm tracks as you kind of get used to the same motions. And when you're on the mound, it's no different. You get the ball, you go through your same routine, you stand there for a set amount of time, you get your pitch. You really get into the motions, and that's where we see a lot of guys like Max Scherzer has a very, very quick rhythm. He's doing really good with this. Clayton Kershaw is another one. He's usually pretty quick at turning the ball around. Other guys are not. And those are the guys with the longer rhythm. So they're just not used to it. I like a little longer just for, like I said, the batters more so than the pitchers. The pitchers can change. The batters, you're going to need an extra second sometimes.
So what if it is we reduce it to 5 seconds to where you have to be in the box? Does that fix that?
No, I'd expand it.
Okay.
I'd extend it. I would make it probably 20 and 30 seconds instead of 15 and 20. Because like I said, like if I get a pitch coming inside, especially anything like above the rib cage, I'm gonna want a second to kind of catch my breath, because holy shit, that's fucking scary.
Yeah.
I would say I like your idea of the no clock for the first pitch, at least for your first at bat, because we see guys doing what are called curtain calls, or especially after a big at bat, right? Like, let's have some leniency here. If the guy's getting a standing ovation from the crowd and wants to step out and tip his cap, let him do that.
Yeah,
I think they can,
and also the guys coming in from the bullpen as well.
Yeah, and I think we can implement maybe like a 2 warnings per game, right, for either the pitcher or the batter. If you're past that, you'll get a warning. You get 10 seconds from there, or you get 5 seconds from there to be set and ready before we just start handing out balls and strikes. The away from the pitch clock one, the pick rule is what it is. Guys are going to have to really manage their pickoffs, right? You don't want to burn.
I think stolen bases are exciting, so I think it's a positive direction. I used to not watch baseball because it was boring as shit. So
yeah,
it's been exciting this year.
Yeah, I like the pickoff one because I always hated, whether I was a fielder, a runner, a batter, anything, I hated seeing a guy pick over 5, 6, 7 times in an at-bat. Just get the fucking game going. Obviously, you're not going to get him, right? If he's going to steal, hopefully your catcher has a good arm. The runner on second is probably the one that I have the hardest time accepting, and it's been around for a few years already, because I am of the opinion that baseball is like purely natural. Everyone gets their chance, even chance across the board. I don't like giving guys a free runner. I don't like that. I think you'd have to earn your way in.
So I had no idea this rule was a thing until the Braves went into overtime with the Reds for the first time this season. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? You get into the top of the 10th and there's a guy on second. I have been to some of the longest minor league games ever played. I swear to God. I've been to a 15 game and a 19 game inning in the minor leagues. So I don't give a shit. If we're going to overtime, let's fucking go to overtime. You know, that's why college football has the best overtime between them and the NFL. It's like you said, it's pure. You have to earn that shit to win. Yeah. And I get you want to speed it up because you want to speed the TV windows up, but I mean, overtime is not really as prevalent in any sport. So, except for NASCAR.
Yeah, there gets to be a fine line. I think if they would even push that window back to putting the runner on second to, say, the 13th inning, right?
Yeah,
if you can't get it done in an extra 3 innings, throw that runner on. I would probably be fine with that, just because at that point you're playing an extra third of a game, right? Let's call that. Or even if they set a runner on first, it's a lot harder to score a run from first base than it is from second.
Yeah, and maybe progressively, you know, you get to the 12th inning, you put that runner on first. You get to the 14th inning, you put it on second.
Yeah, if we're going 16 innings, fuck it, give everyone a runner on third.
Yeah. I mean, how rare would that be? I'm probably very rare. But
it doesn't happen very often.
It seems like you have a level-headed sort of yes or no, and maybe to a lot of these things, but you know, to my surprise, as someone who saw all this stuff on a random TikTok, you know, 3 weeks before the season started, saw some of the crazy shit that was going down in spring training and was like, holy shit, they're making baseball exciting. Like, let's fucking go. And I've fucking delved in to being a baseball fan. I can't understand some of these old heads getting pissed about this, that, and the other tradition, yada, yada, yada. Especially like with the shift. Everybody hated the shift for whatever reason. But it keeps defense on their toes because they can't be in an advantage depending on who's batting. So,
the shift I don't like. I don't like that shift.
you don't like the shift, or you don't like the rule?
I don't like the rule banning the shift.
See, I think it's fine.
Again, I get both sides of it. The game has changed a lot. I will say, if you become a more in-depth fan, right, and you start to learn all the little things of like pitch sequence, right, and all the other signs and shit that they give out, what the other situations are, hit and run, double steal, shit like that, you might lean back on some of these rules. Very might. But as someone who grows up with it and plays in it, it's a huge culture shock. Huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I guess that was my thing. These are pretty radical changes. They're kind of akin to what we've dealt with the last 2 decades in NASCAR, from the invent of the chase, all of its iterations, all the iterations of the playoffs, stages, green, white, checkers, not racing to the line, which was kind of a little bit before our time because we were watching, yes, but we weren't like entrenched yet because we were too fucking young. But with this happening, is this calling us out as NASCAR fans because we've been doing it for 2 decades, or is this saying, no, this is a sports problem, that when it comes to change, no one can accept it?
Yes, second one. It's a sports change thing because sports are so generational. Like we can go back in the 70s in NASCAR and understand what's going on, right? Same with baseball. It's been the same for decades. You could go back to the 60s when they raised the mound, which was really the last massive change that we've seen. And you can watch any game and it'll play out almost the exact same with regards of hits, runs, things like that. You'll understand the tempo of it. It is leaning towards making everything faster, just like we've seen in NASCAR, right? Trying to quicken shit up, trying to get more excitement out there. When I played, and this was 2014, 2015, when I played college baseball, our coach laid it out to us that in a baseball game, in a 3-hour game, the ball is only going to be in play for 11 minutes, right? And the diehard fans will love and look for those 11 minutes, but the casual fan is going to see the other 2 hours and 49 minutes. Right. And so we've got to find a way, and he let it into like, we got to capitalize on this, that, and the other thing. But the average fan has got to do something with that other 2.5 hours. They have to. Yeah. You have to be able to draw people in. And as you get to learning baseball, if you do, you will start to see, like I mentioned, those little things of every at bat, you might have one hittable pitch, and you'll start to look for those hittable pitches. Right. Just like in NASCAR, we can see a battle for the lead heating up 15, 20 laps before it happens, right, whereas the casual fan only sees it when he's on his bumper.
And that's when we complain that Fox doesn't broadcast the race to be enjoyable. Whereas, we look and we know what's going to happen. So would you say that we would fall into kind of the generational type of stuff when we're talking about the old days and NASCAR mindset and harp on these changes year after year? You think that do you think that that's necessarily a bad thing? Because when I look at baseball from this newness of it, it's like, oh, well, they're making this shit better. If they were to tell me tomorrow that college football games would institute the same thing that the NFL does with keeping the clock running for a lot more plays than or like when they're moving the change and stuff. I go back to watching college games because they wouldn't last 3.5, 4 hours, right? They wouldn't have all these stoppages because the biggest thing for me is I don't want to sit down and watch 4 hours worth of football and 4 more hours worth of football to watch the next game because I want to watch all the fucking games because college football is crazy. I stopped watching college football because they're too long. So when I look at baseball, I never thought it was any interesting. So I didn't watch it. well, I see all these things. They explain to these rules. They explain why these rules are going to be effective in shortening games. I'm like, well, okay, I don't have to sit an afternoon out to watch a 4-hour baseball broadcast. It's going to be done in 2.5 hours. That's enticing. These new rules, oh, well, they seem like they're going to make these games more exciting, and they have. So that's why I'm doing it. So do we sound like the geriatric old fart because you and I, Nathan and Keith, Jared, my dad, anyone that we've had on this podcast always harp about these changes that NASCAR's making, and they're actually making them more exciting? Other than
as far as NASCAR,
gloss over the next gen car issues at Martinsville that we just talked about.
Outside the major issues as a whole, yeah, we're the old farts. Okay. As a generational thing, you are as a NASCAR fan where I am as a baseball fan, right? We understand how the shit go. Basically, we understand the little things, which is the same arguments that we have with a lot of people that are in their 60s now, right? If they want it back in the old days, we say, no, this is better because of this, this, and this. Right. Same across most all sports. It is a generational thing. You talk to anyone now who is 16 years old and a NASCAR fan, specifically guys who have just started watching in the last few years, they don't know any different. And they're not going to learn any different because it's not going the same way forward. They're only going to see the highlights going backward, right? They're not going to sit down and watch 1999 Bristol. They're going to watch Dale, Dump, and Terry.
Yeah, that's only Dale Jr. and myself who watch an old race a day.
It's our generation are the last ones who are going to sit down and watch a full old race until the newer fans start to understand the little things. Right. We see, like I said, the strategies playing out over the course of a huge long run. Newer fans don't. So nor should they care to, because in the same way that you don't care to see a pitch sequence play out over the course of an at-bat, or see a rally being formed 2 innings before it actually happens in a baseball game.
I don't even know what you're talking about with the rally.
Exactly.
So, when it comes to that, how do we not sound like the old guy telling them to get off my lawn when we're making changes and say, no, this is what is going on? And how do you explain to someone to get them excited about something that might seem boring because it's not flashy?
You can't explain that to someone. They have to be able to look at it objectively.
Okay.
They have to be able to look at the whole, compare the two, see the pros and cons of both, and make a decision from there. And unfortunately, sport fans in general are not very good at that.
Okay. Well, I guess that sucks. But I know we talk about broadcasts and stuff. We talk about how NBC is a lot more user friendly and not making a joke of the stuff. I don't know how to fall in love with something at the, I guess, same level that I have with NASCAR, because this was life for me. Right. I grew up with it. My first word was race car. I've lived and breathed this shit for 27 years. I went to my first racetrack at like 4 months old. That's all I've been doing. It has been entrenched in my life. I don't know how to get someone to the passion level that I'm at without, saying that, sounding stupid. Because I'm like, no, fucking stage racing sucks, dude. Like, you don't even see these guys out here showing their talent off because they can't do tire strategy. It's tire saving and fuel saving. Because but the thing is, though, I don't necessarily know that makes us look like geriatric old farts, because you look at the mid 2000s, we had the exact same complaints from casual fans the whole time.
Yeah, you can't put that into words, because, like you said, you lived it, and I'm in the same boat. I grew up at the racetrack. Most of my earliest memories are walking in the shop, seeing cars getting painted. Right? You can't do that. We can't just make it black and white for the new fan, or for a fan who didn't get to experience that the same way. Much like a kid who grew up in a law family is going to understand law a whole lot better than someone who decided he wanted to be a lawyer in high school. Right. You might kind of get the same level of knowledge at some point, but you're not going to have that same drive for it. And that's just the difference in everyone. The only way we get back to getting those kind of fans like you and I involved in the sport, is getting these new fans to get their kids to grow up around it. That's it.
Right. Okay. And I guess the biggest step is going to be, how do we do that? Because you look at Drive to Survive and you look at Formula One as a whole. That's a massive marketing thing. They got a lot of people to watch, but now they're having 2 solid years of Max Verstappen Formula One and not just providing good racing because of street circuits. The cost cap is not a thing, even though they've tried to make it a thing. And various other stuff that, guys that watch that sport religiously can look past.
It's the same thing.
I don't know.
That we saw in NASCAR in the mid 2000s. We saw arguably some of the best racing in series history at the peak of viewership, right? And Formula One had amazing seasons at the peak of Drive to Survive, and now both are tapering off.
Right.
I think as NASCAR fans, we need to understand that the 2000s boom was a fad and not the normal.
Right. But there's always room for improvement, right? There's always a way to get new fans there. And I know we've talked about stuff, whether it's ticket prices, whether it's TV windows, which I don't agree with the executives that it's working, because it doesn't seem like it's working. Marketability is a big one. This week, we knew Chase was coming back because we saw it on network TV with commercials. We saw it on Facebook ads. We saw it on YouTube ads. We saw it on Twitter ads that Chase was coming back. Why don't we rally the troops in the marketing department for every single race? You look at IndyCar, for example. Everyone knows the Indy 500. Everyone mistakes the Indy 500 for the Daytona 500 if we talk about in the NASCAR race. Because it's the greatest spectacle in racing. It's the biggest sporting event, single-day sporting event in the world. 400,000 people minimum show up every year. They rent a fucking building for the months of April and May in Indianapolis, and they just splurge on marketing, and they always have people there. 500 to 700,000 people watch each race. Peacock, NBC, USA, doesn't matter. I don't know. I think we are at a precipice of the best package we've ever had on intermediates, or at least since 2015. And the availability to get these fans are there because social media exists, because marketing is more, if you like it or not, more or less more effective now. I don't know what we need to do once we get the 5-second grab, how we keep them. Because I feel like it's very easy to make a lifelong fan if we can get that nuance into their brains. I think that's the biggest step. Because baseball's hooked me with these new rules. I can guarantee you within a couple of years, I'm going to be probably as passionate as you.
I would doubt that.
Okay, well, I'm saying
that's nothing against you. That's just the point I'm about to make, is that in 10 years, are you going to feel the same way about the game of baseball if they don't change any more rules than you are now? Or are you going to start to see flaws in the game?
I'll probably see flaws in the game, but I see flaws in NASCAR, and I'm still sticking around.
Because you grew up around it. Because you don't know any different. The big thing, you mentioned the Indy 500. I'm going to put that aside because that is generational marketing. Because everyone who knows about the Indy 500 knew about it because either they are a diehard race fan and they understand it, or the casual fans that only know it because their dad put it on every year when they were a kid, whose dad also put it on every year when they were a kid, who has been heard about the whole life, right? NASCAR fans know the Daytona 500 differently than a casual fan does. A casual fan knows of the Daytona 500, but they probably don't give a shit about it.
Right.
At least not the average Joe. Much in the same way that, DBC hit the nail on the head, is that there's no household name in NASCAR anymore. If you ask anyone who's not a NASCAR fan, they don't know any current drivers. They couldn't.
Do they even know Chase Elliott? Is a good question.
No, they don't. Like you said, we need to grab more than that 5 seconds. We need to be able to understand, and NASCAR needs to be able to understand that marketing is way different than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well,
15 years ago. If our
I don't,
intermediate package is the best we have, we should have started marketing the Coke 600 massively hard last
in
year.
August. Yeah.
Right. I think we need to see if we are going as a sport to change this, and to change the hype that we have around our sport. We can't just market the upcoming race. We can't just market the race 2 months out. We can't just market the Daytona 500. The PGA Tour markets the Masters year fucking round.
Right.
People make content about the Masters year fucking round. So we need to get people excited about one thing at a time. If we start with the Coke 600, so be it. Everyone knows Daytona, right? So
Right.
let's do the 600. Then let's do Martinsville or Bristol night race, however we want to do that. To the casual,
Well, the thing is, though, they come out with good. They come out with good commercials. They come out with good content, but they only come out with content for the races. And if you look at the boom, you look at what Jeff Gordon and Dale Sr. worked together to create. That was marketability of the man and not the machine.
mm-hmm.
Like you said, we don't see the drivers anywhere. We are starting a little bit more to see big time commercials, Domino's, DoorDash, are the two that I can think of off the top of my head. Advanced Auto Parts and Shell. I've seen, but I don't see those when I'm not watching networks that carry NASCAR. I'm not seeing those on, other stuff. And
Yeah.
you can grab younger fans if you're watching fucking TikToks and you get an advert from NASCAR, which I've never fucking seen, and my For You page, like I sent you the other night, a new dude that puts qualifying laps on there. I sent that profile to you. That's my fucking For You page is all fucking NASCAR shit, and baseball shit now. But
so, man, I had a really good point to kind of end on.
Did I steamroll
it? That's all right.
Oh no.
But so that part of it, NASCAR just needs to do right. Oh, I got it. When we were kids, what did the drivers do in the commercials? What made them stand out from everyone else?
They were wearing their race suits, if that's what you mean.
That's exactly what I mean. If you see the Advanced Auto Parts commercial with Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, they're not wearing them. If you see, what was the Denny Hamlin PJ's commercial?
That was him in his race suit.
That was
everybody talked about it.
Massively successful commercial. And that's
also, though, you have to think of the extra advert media.
Right. They spent so much money running that commercial. That's
well, no,
come from sponsors.
I'm saying like in the peak, what do we have? 2006. We had 3 feature length films, one from Pixar, one with Will Ferrell in it, and a kids movie, Herbie Fully Loaded.
So if we were to run back, Talladega Nights kind of killed modern day NASCAR perception in the media.
I can agree with that. I hated that movie until 2 years ago.
Because it's funny, right? It's got some funny parts in it, but it also enforced all of the stereotypes that NASCAR was just starting to break.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I hated the movie for the longest time.
Terrible timing.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, we did have it in other media. I'm thinking back to NASCAR racers when I was a kid. If we had more than just a season and a half of that, what could we have done with that? Video games were immaculate back then. We haven't had a good video game since 2011, and I say that as someone who didn't hate the U-Technics games. A lot of people did. So 2007 would have been the last good NASCAR game if you ask most people. I don't know. I just feel like we could be on the precipice of taking over a lot more fans in this generational switch, because we obviously had a lot of people die in COVID that were old, and old people watch NASCAR the most. I think getting younger generations would be easy if we could just spend the fucking money to do so and stop making fucking tickets $300 for a weekend.
And that's the exact problem, is only 20% of our fan base is 18 to 49. Our fan base is incredibly old, especially compared to all sports. Golf has a younger fan base.
That's ridiculous as well.
It's ridiculous, right?
And they're doing the Drive to Survive thing too, and they're getting more people to watch. It's working. That shit works as much as the strong arm F1 is God fans want to piss around and stuff, but they're pissing off other fans. We do that too. The amount of bitching that our fans do on social media only turns away fans that are potential fans, in my
And
opinion.
it's because of the fans like you and I that have known what good racing is, that see it and we bitch about it. And that's what we are the ones that drive them off.
Yeah,
Not
but I don't.
necessarily you and I specifically.
Well, yeah, I know, but there's a different temperament, right? Because you and I, we come on here and we air our stuff, right? We don't really air it on Twitter and Facebook every single week. We don't get on to
Right.
Facebook and type racist shit about Bubba Wallace and now Raja Karuth, who is
Right.
the fucking best human being I've ever had the pleasure of meeting.
The
Just because he's black,
biggest
like
thing starting today that NASCAR could do to gain attraction and a new fan base and younger crowds is delete and block people from commenting who comment racist ass shit.
Yeah.
Number fucking one.
Yeah.
Number one would clear it out.
Yeah. I believe so.
Whoever ran the media page once a day went through a handful of posts and block anyone who says some racist ass fucking comments. And I don't mean like tongue in cheek comments. I mean blatantly.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of that stuff. I used to respond to it, but that was bad for my mental health, so I stopped. I am taking one of my best friends, Harrison, and his son to their first race in Daytona. They're black. He had questions about it, and I'm like, well, Daytona is perfectly fine because it's, it's like high scale racing. Because if you've ever been to Daytona Rising since they've done that, it's immaculate. And I don't think those type of fans are very prevalent. But when you and I were at Atlanta, Bubba Wallace was already announced during driver announcements, and the woman sitting 2 seats beside us said, I'm gonna boo and something out once that N word comes out. Like, what the fuck? No. And sadly, I did not have the authority to kick that lady out at that point. I learned later I could have. But that shit doesn't fly. And when you're at a race with your family and you hear that, even if you're not a young black family, you're going to be put off by that and probably not go again. So imagine the fact that, like in Talladega, for example, has a very large demographic of black people that go. When they hear that shit, because it's becoming more prominent now after the last couple of years, which I never heard that shit when I was a kid. I hear it now. This shit is livid. That's all I am, is because this shit is ridiculous. And we've got a multinational sport as well now with Daniel Suarez, and everything like that happens. So they say shit about Daniel Suarez as well. So I don't know. That's the biggest thing for me that's keeping away some potential new fans. But circling back, I feel like we should be able to ingrain the nuances of the sport into these newer fans easily. We're just not.
Right.
So sorry about that rant about racist race fans, but
no,
yeah, like I don't know. People get mad when you call them out, I guess. So if there are interviewers that are on that spectrum, fuck off. I don't want you here anyways.
Wow. Great about it.
Yeah. And you want to say something in my face, I will be going to a lot of races next year. So come find me, I guess.
Yeah, square up. I ain't never been afraid to get my ass kicked.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably going to get my ass kicked, but still, I'll get my ass kicked fighting for something that's right.
I'm going to get a couple good hits in. I know that.
Yeah. Over some ignorant shit. Fuck that shit.
But, alrighty.
Yeah. With that, on that note, I think it has been a really good show. Very long, which I knew it was going to be when we got into the MLB arguments and stuff. But I think that was really something that I needed to know from someone in another sport who loves another sport as much as I love NASCAR. So I think that was a very productive conversation. So I appreciate that. But let's just be the geriatric old farts. Going forward.
Up.
Yeah, but let's be mindful that we don't need to turn some of these guys away. Other than that, anything else you got?
I think I'm set. Oh, my hairline is receding pretty far.
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
Eek.
Lower that testosterone like me and have a full head of hair that doesn't fall out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm less of a man than you, so I can have more hair.
I think it's just the fact that I brush it all back in my hat every single
Yeah,
day.
yeah. I don't wear hats either, so that also probably helps me.
Right.
Uh, when we come out with a merch line, I'll put some hats out there and I won't wear them. But anyways, come see us in a week. Our pre-recorded episode we'll be recording with Keith on Monday, and hopefully we'll be able to rectify our schedules to all be on Wednesdays within the next 6 to 18 months. I don't know, because I do love these conversations, especially when we've got more than just me and Colton or Keith and I. So I love doing this every week, though. So thanks for watching. Any support is well worth it to me. Makes me happy. So follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch at FanFuelMSM, or Twitch at FanFuel Gaming. And speaking of FanFuel Gaming, you'll see me tomorrow. I'm starting up something new. On Thursdays, it's going to take me a full calendar year, but I'm going to do a AI season on iRacing of Indy cars. If you don't care about that, don't tune in. If you do want to come watch me, that's what I'll be doing. So I'll start that up tomorrow, and hopefully you'll like that. If not, come see us next week. Anything else, Colton, to say to the fans?
I think I'm set. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, don't be a dick, because we'll come for you. Well, maybe not, but something will happen. Other than that, let me see if I can get this music to not be shit this time, because they changed the music quality. So, oh, there it is. You guys can hear it. All right, well, we'll see you next Wednesday, promptly at 7:30 for the pre-recorded show. Thanks again, Colton, and listen to some music.